Morning all.
Morning.
Good to see such a great turnout. Any visitors? We have Dennis Swift. Dennis, welcome.
Thank you.
Laurie Rose has brought Dennis along. Dennis, we hope that you enjoy being here, and we might get you to sign a Form 4. Peter Mckenna knows what Form 4s are. We'll sign you up to be a member. Any other visitors? Any particular days, birthdays, anniversaries anyone wants to mention?
Wrong end of the year.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Michael Coffey. I've applied for membership and I just wondered how long does it take?
Michael Coffey.
Yeah.
Michael, your membership will be given absolute priority, and can you be here at the November meeting?
Yes.
We'll induct you at the November meeting.
Thank you.
Great to have you on board. Our learned Vice President is dispensing justice this morning in the Melbourne Magistrates Court. So here's an apology. We won't have a roll call, but are there any particular apologies that anyone wants to have recorded?
Noel Benton.
Noel Benton, thank you, Bert.
And Detlef Hingst.
Detlef, thanks, Kev.
Peter Bedford and Liz Turling.
Les Turling, we'll record that as well. All right. There's a member of our group who's a very special person and who has played a prominent role in this club over a long period of time. And his name is Gary Papworth. Gary was in charge of organising activities forever.
18 years.
18 years, well, that's forever, equivalent to a life sentence, and did a phenomenal job in coming up with excursions and activities that our members could be involved in.
Yeah.
And a lot of work for Gary, and a lot of commitment from Gary's point of view. And the committee felt that Gary's contribution to this club should be recognised. So, Gary, we would like to present you with a certificate of appreciation from this club. If you'd like to come forward. And don't go away, because I've got something else for you, which my dear wife put together on behalf of the lady members. This is on behalf of in particular on behalf of the lady members of the club that we now fortunately have.
Oh, thank you kindly. Thanks very much, Dave. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. I've had a fantastic time with you guys, and I'll still here. The work that was put in over the 18 years, I think everybody, there's a lot of people, new people here now, but over the years we had absolutely wonderful. We used to fill a bus with some of the members to go out on some of the trips and so forth. Now everyone's getting older and so forth, they can't do it, unfortunately. Yesterday I came home, not yesterday, today's Tuesday. Sunday I come home, I was away for 7 days in Mildura and Broken Hill for 7 days. And that's the sort of thing we do. We use a firm by the name, or we were using a firm by the name of Group League Travel. Absolutely fantastic. When they get a few more pamphlets out, I'll bring them here. Some people might be interested in going and so forth. It's really, but I'd really like to thank everybody for this. I do appreciate it. Thank you kindly. And I've had a really great time with you guys. Thank you kindly, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, for your contribution to this club, and we look forward to many more experiences that we can share. And can I mention that Gary, of course, facilitates our ability to make use of the excellent facilities at Springthorpe for our President's Barbecue and various other things. Our esteemed Armand Graham, would you like to give a report, Graham?
Yep.
This microphone's not going, but if you stand close to me, everyone will hear it.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Two things to bring to your attention today. I spoke yesterday with Selma Edwards, and Len, you'll recall, has been unwell and not able to attend meetings for quite some time. He's now been admitted to Twin Parks Aged Care in Reservoir as a permanent resident, so we won't be seeing him here anymore. The other thing is, I spoke to Pat Griffith yesterday. Noel has been he's been unwell for quite a long time. He's been a little bit worse recently, and there is some thought that he may be having to go on to intermittent oxygen therapy. But the good news for Noel is that you'll remember the ABC program last year, The Piano?
Yeah.
Now, Noel has been selected as a person to be featured in an oncoming series of that. They're putting on a new series of The Piano next year because it was so popular. And as we speak today, the ABC is at Noel's home, interviewing him and Pat, and sort of doing some spade work towards getting him into that program. Apparently, in about a week or two's time, he will need to go to, I think it's the Camberwell, maybe some shopping centre, and he will put on his item there. He's going to play on Wings of Song. So that's a wonderful thing for him, and for us also to know that he's so esteemed of all of us. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you.
Right. It's all planned in advance, it's not spontaneous.
Many thanks to Graham for his sterling efforts in keeping in touch with our colleagues who, for all sorts of reasons, can't be here. Kev Ryan, our treasurer. Kev, anything to report? Is there any money flowing into those bank accounts?
Not as much as I'd like. We have at the moment $1,112 in the account. $490 of that is for 7 people who've so far paid for the Christmas lunch. I've got another one paid today, so 8 people have paid for the lunch. So I think we need to get a bit of a bigger one there. You might say something about that. But that's where we are at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Kev. Yeah, I will say something about that. The sheet is there. Graham and I have been talking to Warringal about the lunch, and Warringal are very strong in terms of their numbers. They're close to 50 now in terms of people going, which is terrific. And unfortunately, we're dragging the chain. And this morning we were at 14, which I think is going to reduce to 1 or 2. So we really do need to try and at least get it to 20 from this club. It's going to go ahead because the numbers from Warringal are so strong, but we do want to have a significant involvement. It's a very good event, beautiful setting, nice lunch, good good friendship. So can I just urge anyone who hasn't already signed up, you can still put your name down, and we need to have the money, which is $70 a head, paid through to Kev, so that in turn, when we come to settle with Ballara, we can do that. So please give it some thought if you haven't already signed up, because we would like to get our numbers to at least 20, so that we can have a significant presence at this event. All right. I think now I'm just going to ask Joe if he'd like to say a few words. He has a particular matter that he'd like to draw to our attention. If he can make his way up.
Thank you, David.
You stand next to me, Joe, or the microphone will pick it up. This one's no.
That's fine, can they? Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to be able to say ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure you'll all be aware that one of the major issues of our time is climate change and the risks and effects of climate change. Well, last Monday, the Minister for whatever it is, Chris Bowen, he's a Minister for Environment or something, he released a report from the Australian Climate Service called Australia's National Risk Assessment, National Climate Risk Assessment. It's a beautiful report, very well done, and of course I would push it hard because our daughter was the lead author on this report, and she had to front up to the Senate inquiry and answer questions. It's very interesting. Unfortunately, I can't guarantee to just get you copies, but I'll leave it on the back table, and if you care to have a glance at it, I think you'll find it interesting and worth a look. If you want me to get you a copy, let me know, and I will do so. So it's Australia's National Climate Risk Assessment. It's a bit of a lump. The main report is 270 pages, so a little light reading for bedtime. And then there's an overview report, which is much shorter, which summarises it. But it is interesting, and it's a little bit confronting if you start to think about the impacts that the changes in climate are having and are likely to have. So it's on the table at the back, and I'll be happy to tell you about it. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Joe. Very important.
Very important.
So I hope no one minds me wearing this particular jumper today. I thought it was appropriate having regard to what happened in the grand final. And I'm sure our guest speaker won't mind, because Fitzroy and Collingwood were sort of adjacent, blue-collar suburbs, and although they fought hard on the field, I think Peter would confirm with me that off the field we had some good times together. We're going to move to the Members' Corner, and I'm going to invite Bev to come forward and give a presentation for Members' Corner. Terrific to have her do that. She's probably had plenty of practice from her time at Rosanna, but it'll be great to hear from her this morning. I'm not quite sure what she's going to talk about, but she'll soon tell us. Now, we've got to, Bruce, get the microphone, I think, on this one.
I haven't put our names down because of uncertainty about being away then, but yes, I was looking at the date actually. I've got meetings the next 3 days, chances are that we'll be home by the 20th.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? Thank you for inviting me to a members' corner. I've been strapped doing this for the last 34 years. But coming to joining your club, here I am. I've had many interests in my life, such as music, sport. I was a sample hand machinist, which is actually, my mother was a dressmaker, and I then did an apprenticeship in dressmaking, and I became a sample hand, which is making the first garment of a new design. And then I changed and I did some office work, secretarial duties, and then I went into nursing and attained my general and midwifery certificates. Also, most importantly, of course, is Graham and 4 children in my life. Today I'm going to talk about my journey in music. I started piano lessons at the age of 7 until I was 14. Having attained the level of grade 6 at the Melbourne Conservatorium of Music. My practice time was strictly adhered to and monitored by my mother with a time card that she had to sign that I verify that I did at least 1 hour a day practice, if not more. And my teacher entered me into the Stedford competitions. And I especially enjoyed playing duets with another music student, and we continued to do this for quite some time after both of us had stopped going to have lessons. We actually entered the 3 Gong program. Do you remember that on 3AW? You could go along and play your piece, and we actually achieved the 3 gongs. It wasn't a 3 gong when you're out, it was three gongs if you were rewarded with that. Once I commenced at nursing training, I didn't have the opportunity to play the piano very often. Then marriage, children, living in hospital quarters, travelling overseas, living in New Guinea and in England, for Graham to obtain more experience in his medical profession. But then we came back and settled in Melbourne and were able to obtain a piano through Graham's uncle, who was the manager of the music department at Alan's Music Store in Collins Street, Melbourne. I was able to resume playing, but my standard had lapsed so often. I enjoyed playing for the primary school choir, which performed in school concerts and other venues, Calisthenic Club, which my daughters attended. I do play for church service and the fellowship service and for Ceylon. I joined our church choir as a teenager and often sang duets with a friend, and we continued to do this for 60 years actually, until she developed dementia, and unfortunately that we're not able to continue. I'd never had singing lessons, so I commenced with a teacher called Ian Field. Now Ian was an actor and a good singing teacher who had a lot of experience overseas, and had taught a variety of well-known singers. And this led to singing in Stedford competitions. I sang in many small groups, church choir, the Ian Field Singers, The Evan Creswell Singers, which was led by Evan Creswell, who at the time was the conductor of the Heidelberg Choral Society. Morris Streetfords. The Emmanuel Singers, a church-based choir with 40 members from various churches, mainly singing at churches, nursing homes and retirement villages. I also spent times entertaining at senior citizens clubs. While living in Nagambie, a choir there was formed and we were given the name of the Nagambie Larks Lakes. And this was a community choir open to anybody who wanted to sing. So there were quite a variety of people who knew songs, but they sing it to their own beat, their own timing. But it all seemed to work. The community loved this, and we sang at many functions there. Now, there was a choral choir there called the Mitchell Singers, which was led by Peter Hagen, who's a very well-known harpsichordist. So, many of you will know that our youngest daughter is a professional singer, and quite a few of you will have heard her sing at Provost functions. One of the larger groups and choir I sang with was the Victoria Concert Choir, which came together under the leadership of Douglas Hayward and performed once a year in the Melbourne Concert Hall, and he did this so people could have an experience of singing in a concert hall. Douglas Hayward is the conductor for the Christmas Eve candlelights, and I've also been a part of that choir. I sang with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra and Ensemble for 16 years. The MSO Chorus, which began as the Melbourne Chorale, has been acclaimed as Victoria's finest choral group and the country's best vocal group, with a growing international reputation. The choir originally presented as a small choir in 1965, and in 1966 a full concert schedule and Victorian regional tours were organised, and in 1967 an invitation was issued for them to sing in the ABC studio with the then ABC Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, and this attracted new singers to the choir. The tradition began in 1987 when the chorus first joined the MSO to perform annually the Messiah, which they still present 3 performances at the end of each year. 1990s, a 50-voice professional standard ensemble was formed, and this led to tours to Brazil, Perth, participation in the Mahler Symphony No. 8 for 1,000 voices at both the Olympic Art Festival in Sydney, and in 2000, the centenary of the Federation commemoration at the Royal Exhibition Buildings. Also in 2001, the ensemble were invited to tour Brazil as part of an English festival, and this composed of many art groups, of which we were the only choir. And we spent 3 weeks after that touring through Brazil and were very well received. This was an audition choir, having to audition every 2 years, and if singing in both the large choir and the ensemble meant singing and having to prepare auditions for each group. Given the decades-long close relationship between the MSO and the Melbourne Chorale, a merger was approved for the chorale to become the new Melbourne Symphony Orchestra in 2008. And I have been fortunate to have sung under the baton of many international conductors. The chorale's first mainstage ABC concert was Mozart's great Mass in C minor in 1969, and the choir performed this work again recently and to mark their 60th anniversary. Most of these concerts were sung in the concert hall, sung in the cathedrals. Heidelberg Choral Society was the first big choir that I joined once I started singing, and I rejoined it when we returned to Melbourne to live. I've sung with the choir for a combined total of 33 years. I had the 16 years out with the MSO. I was singing in both choirs, but a change in the rehearsal dates, and that meant that they were having it on the same night, so that was a stop to that. In 2017, we were invited to do a tour of China and perform 4 concerts in different cities. We learned to sing the Chinese national anthem, which we did very well. There was quite a lot of travelling on the bullet trains, which was quite an experience. In 2019, after sending an audition tape, we were invited with other voices to become an international choir to perform at Carnegie Hall, New York. Sir Arthur Jenkins was the resident conductor there, and the concert was to celebrate his 75th birthday, singing one of his compositions. Peter Bandy has been the artistic director of the Heidelberg Choir since 2011 and has earned a formidable reputation in choral, orchestral, opera and ballet music, and has spent years perfecting his craft in music director, arranger and chorus master and chorus manager. We're also very fortunate to have a well-known pianist, Catherine Pisani, as our rehearsal accompanist. No audition is necessary to join the HSCC, and we are a friendly and inclusive choir, also known for our professionalism and desire to improve on every performance. We rehearse for 2.5 hours each Monday night, and I'll probably spend about 6 hours a week preparing for each rehearsal. Now, David has suggested that I might sing a little song, and the one I've chosen to sing is, as we're advancing in our years, I would like to finish with a song that Julie Angry sang to commemorate her 69th birthday. And it's a parody sung to the tune of My Favourite Things from the movie Sound of Music. And the lyrics that she used what I'll now sing for you now. Maylocks and nose drops and needles for knitting, walkers and handrails and new dental fittings, bundles of magazines tied up with string. These are a few of my favourite things. Cadillacs and cataracts and hearing aids and glasses, polydent and post-dent and fistful steeping glasses, pacemakers, golf hats and porches with swings. These are a few of my favourite things. When the pipes leak, when the bonds creak, when the knees go bad, I simply remember my favourite things, and then I don't feel so bad. Hot tea and crumpets and corn pads for bunions, no spicy hot food or food cooked with onions, bathrobes and knee pads and hot pills they bring. These are a few of my favourite things. Back pains, confused brains, and no need for sinning. Think bones and fractures and hair that is thinning. And we won't mention our short, shrunken frames when we remember our favourite things. When the joints ache, when the hips break, when the eyes grow dim, then I remember the great love I had, and then I don't feel so bad. Thank you. One thing I would like to mention function is, as I say, I still sing in the Heidelberg Choral Society. And in November, we have 3 concerts a year, and in November we have coming up called Radiance, which is an English choral music across time. Thank you. Oh,
Thanks, Bev. That was terrific. Well, we'll get, you'll just get this back. Bev, terrific. Thanks for that. And it's very appropriate that we move from Bev's beautiful singing to our beautiful singing, led by Kevin Ryan, of course. And we're going to sing a special song, Kevin and I. I'm not sure we're going to do it first or last. What do you think, Kev?
I think we should just test the system out first. Okay?
Yep.
We are the boys from Old Fitzroy, we wear the colours maroon and blue. We will always fight for victory, and we'll always see it through. Win or lose, we do or die, and in defeat we always try. Fitzroy, Fitzroy, the team we hold so dear. Premiers we were this year.
All right.
I'll leave that.
Yep.
The book's handing out. Oh, they're out.
I don't think that's. It was. Yeah, I know.
I'll just read it. There's the clip.
It's there.
Well, the first one is number 37 in the book. Mona Lisa. Number 37. Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa, you're so like the lady with the mystic smile. Is it only because you're lonely and blame you? When Mona Lisa strangeness in your smile. Do you smile to tempt a lover, Mona Lisa? Or is this your way to hide a broken heart? Many dreams have been brought to your doorstep. They just lie there, and they lie there. Are you warm? Are you real, Mona Lisa? Just as old and lonely on the river. Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa. Righto, we're going to do a bit of sailing now. Number 50. Number 50, Moon River. Number 50. one more, and I'll try to remember which one it is. Number 54, actually.
Right. So the batteries are going.
Sorry?
So the batteries are going, so.
Oh, we give it. There we go. Try to remember the kind of slumber when life was slow and all so mellow. Try to remember the kind of September when grass was green and rain was yellow. Try to remember the kind of September when you were a tender and fellow. Try to remember, and if you remember, then follow. We keep going. Try to remember when life was so tender that no one wept except the willow. Try to remember when life was so tender that dreams were kept beside your pillow. Try to remember when life was so tender that love was ever about to billow. Try to remember, and if you remember, then follow, 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 follow.
I'm sorry, the organ has just completely stopped.
There you go, Bruce. Now, some of you may not like this, but in deference to our guest speaker, we've got one more song we're going to sing. So we're going to give it a go. Good old Collingwood forever, they know how to play the game. Side by side they stick together to uphold the Magpies' name. See the barricades are shouting, as those barricades should, for the premiership's a cakewalk for the good old Collingwood. Hey.
Bruce, I've just lost this again. Okay. Well, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker. Get him to come forward in a minute. Peter Mckenna, we're very fortunate because Peter's he's a West Heidelberg boy. He knows this area backwards, and so it's tremendous to have him here with us this morning. I'll talk a little bit about his football career, and no doubt he's going to tell us about it and tell us about his life more generally. But you might remember that in the early 1970s, Peter Mckenna was the biggest name in football. In the 1970s, Peter was the biggest name in football, and probably it was almost like pop star hysteria going on with Peter. Young girls would run onto the ground to kiss him before the game started.
the club was so heavily inundated with requests for his photos that they had to keep printing off more copies. It was just, no one had ever seen anything like it. This was the 1970s. And then you could hardly believe that he'd started in 1965, that after he kicked 12 goals against South Melbourne, he was dropped to the reserves. And no one could work it out. How could he be dropped to the reserves for the rest of the season? Well, the reason he was dropped to the reserves because he refused to accept a directive from Collingwood not to play in the midweek Teachers' College games. So Peter said, no, I'm playing in my Teachers' College games. Anyway, in the end, of course, they had to bring him back. And when they brought him back, well, what followed, and this is really incredible when you think about how many goals get kicked by forwards like Jeremy Cameron, etc. these days. In 1969, he kicked 98 goals. In 1970, he kicked 143 goals, which is still the highest number by a Collingwood player. And that takes into account the great Gordon Coventry, for example. In 1971, it was 134, 1972, 130, and in 1973, 86. And during his career at Collingwood, he averaged 4.65 goals a game, which is the highest. Now, Peter's game was built on three components. First of all, he had a wonderful understanding of the game and therefore had the ability to read the play. The second was that he was almost telepathic in understanding what his midfielders were going to do, which were the Richardsons and Barry Price, in terms of what they were going to do with the ball. And thirdly, he had a laser-like right boot. And I have to say, I mean, Peter Mckenna is the best kick for goal I've ever seen. And I think most people would agree, who've followed football over a long period of time, that there has never been a better kick for goal than Peter Mckenna. Just extraordinary. From 50 metres, he never missed. It wasn't all easy for Peter because during the course of his football career, he had tragedy in his family, which he had to deal with whilst he was playing. And ultimately, his Collingwood career ended when he suffered a serious knee injury in 1975. But he wasn't finished with football then. He went to play in Tasmania and then subsequently played in the VFA. In 1999, he was inducted into the AFL's Hall of Fame, and in 2010, he finally got his hands on a Premiership Cup when he was asked to present Nick Maxwell with the Premiership Cup for Collingwood in 2010. So, an extraordinary career. But one of the things that shines through about Peter when you read about him and you know him is how humble he was. Peter was never a fellow who pumped up himself. Although in these days Peter would be called a rock star, everyone who's pretty good's called a rock star. Well, Peter was certainly a rock star of the time, but you'd never know it from meeting him and talking to him. So we were absolutely delighted, John and I, when he agreed to come along and have a chat to us today. And would you like to make me welcome?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for inviting me along. It's a pleasure to be here. And to walk into this place when I had my 21st birthday in this very place. I can remember it vividly now. That is 28 years, and I'm 79 now. Work that out. I was only a maths teacher once. But I had my 21st birthday in this it was just a hall. You'd come in off Bell Street, you'd walk straight in, it was just one hall. And that was a long time ago. And I lived, if you walked in a straight line that way from here, you'd run into my house. All right, my house is where I grew up is in Clinton Street. If you go up Miller Street there, turn right, and left, you turn right. And I was in Collingwood area by about 70 metres. Edwin Street runs there past the Repat Hospital on the way to Ivanhoe. If I had have lived on the eastern side of Edwin Street, I would have been bound to Fitzroy. And there was a few guys that lived that side who did play for Fitzroy. But it's also great to be here at Probus because my mum, we had a sad time at a certain time of our life. When I was 21, my sister Mari died in her sleep. She got epilepsy when she was about 15. And she died, then Dad died when he was 58. Then my brother, who was living with Mum up in McLeod, he died when he was 29, he drowned in the bath. He had a diabetic turn and his head went under the water, he had the hair. So we had 3 deaths in the family, and Mum joined Probus at that time and made some wonderful friends through Probus, and that's why I adored my mother, because she went through to lose 2 children and a husband, bang, 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 like that. So she was a marvellous woman. And growing up here, I had a wonderful childhood. Dad was a high school principal, and my mum worked most of her life as a high school secretary. She was at Marylands High out that way, and then Rosanna High, which became Latrobe High. Anyway, and when I was a little boy, I went for prep in grade 1 and 2. I went to St John's in Heidelberg. David, did you go to St John's? Yeah, I thought you might have. And then in grade 3, I went to Parade College. And Parade College Junior School was called Flowerdale, and it was down past the Tower Hotel. Well, where the Tower Hotel was, down that little street is now a Greek school. And then we had ovals there that were always flood. Did you go to flood, David? I mentioned David because when you're a young guy, I'm not aging you, David, but when I was a young guy and I was in Hugh's house, and you're always proud of your house. That was the blue team at Parade College, and you always sort of looked up to the guys who were in leaving and matric. And David was one of the stars of when he was in year 12, and we knew all who the good footballers and the good athletes, and you sort of looked up. And Parade was always such a great sporting school. So I went to Parade College from grade 3 till year 10, and I will mention at the time you had to decide whether your allegiance lay to the school or in my case, St Pius, it's a Catholic football. Father Mogg was our famous priest in West Heidelberg, and I didn't go to parade footy training one night. I was in year 10, and I went to the St Pius football training with YCW, and I got to school, and Brother McDowell, do you remember Brother McDowell, said, "Where were you last night, McKenna?" And I said, "I went to the church football training." Brother said, "Get out here." I got 6 cuts, 3 on each hand, and I went home and told my dad. I said, "Dad, I think I've been unfairly punished." I had to make a decision. He said, "What do you want to do?" He said, and I said, "What do you think?" He said, "Well, you see out the year, I'll get you into a high school." And I went to McLeod High School for leaving in matric. And I met David, and I were both been inducted in the Parade Hall of Fame for 2 different reasons. We were out together on last Friday night for the Hall of Fame night. They induct a couple of people each year. So it's delightful to be. Now, I always thought of David. He came from the other, up the hill and down in Heidelberg. You're Heidelberg or Eaglemont? Heidelberg. And of course I knew his brother was a couple of years of Peter, a real character. He went into law the same as David did. So you sort of always followed what happened to all the old Paradians because they're a very close-knit group. Anyway, growing up here, I was very fortunate. Just round the corner was a soccer ground. It's still there. All us little boys would go up and kick the footy around, and all these men were playing in the senior soccer team. And there were Italians, Scots, English, and all these men. And a number of them came after the war. There was a place called Camp Hell, that was down Parkville Way, and they were these sort of tin huts that people lived in. And in Preston, they had these, I can remember as a little kid going to Preston, these sort of huts, and I think they were tin.
Yes.
And a number of these guys had come out from overseas after the war, and they played for the Heidelberg soccer. They said, "Do you little boys want to play soccer?" Oh yeah, we were all you saw these senior blokes. So I played soccer from the age of 8 till I was 13 and played Aussie rules at school. So eventually I gave soccer up, but I loved it. And these men were, and we played cricket. The team was called Heidelberg Soccer, and we all played cricket in summer for Heidelberg Soccer in the local area against Rosanna, and I eventually played for Rosanna in cricket. But it was a wonderful growing up. Mum had come home and dragged me home in the dark. "Come on, you're going to be home for dinner," because we didn't want to leave this park. We just had so much fun playing sport on that park, and a couple of Collingwood players lived nearby. They didn't play soccer. Twiggy Dunn, he lived round the corner. Ricky Watt lived round the corner, and we all played together at Collingwood. But what happened was I was playing fairly well for West Heidelberg YCW, and I got a letter in the mail, "Would you like to train at Collingwood in 1965? So I went down to, like 100 other young kids were there training, and I'll never forget the first night. It was a hot night, and they had a cross-country run from the Collingwood football ground over towards where the women's prison was and the Yarrabing golf course. We'd run right out there and right around and back to Collingwood. Well, I led the field after 100 metres. I came in third last. Nothing changed over the years. I could sprint, but I couldn't run. Anyway, distance. Anyway, Bob Rose said to me, "Listen, son, you're going to have to improve your fitness if you're going to do any good here." I said, "But I beat 2 of your senior players home." Well, one, Warren Roper, had just had cartilages removed from both knees, and the other one was Ray Gabley, who at the time was about 18 stone. They're the two I beat home. But nothing changed over the years. I was always in the last few in the distance runs and quite embarrassed about it. But I've spoken to a few full forwards over the years, Peter Hudson and Doug Wade, and they said they were hopeless at distance running too. So maybe full forwards are more like the short, sharp sprints. And that's why we played that way. But so I went down thinking I'd play in the thirds or seconds I had a good first game. I was playing centre forward and I played well in the junior game. So they put me in the senior game the next week and I played on a bloke called John Mahon, who was the regular centre back. He was much shorter than me and he was only going half pace. And I played a real good game. So the first game came round. I was listening to the teams. I didn't get till I got picked. So my first game, I went from junior football into the first. And it was the first time they ever used the first game that St Kilda played at Moorabbin. So I remember that well. That's something I'll never forget because it was my first game. Played centre forward on a Jewish guy, believe it or not, and there weren't many Jewish guys playing league football. A bloke called Ian Sinman, and he was a very good player. Then I went to full forward for a little while, and I was on a Brownlow medalist, Verdon Howe. So I wasn't quite ready, but I played. Can't remember now. I must have played about 12 games. But I will tell you what, I was a crazy Essendon supporter. My sister who died was crazy Collingwood and loved Murray Weedham and like all the women, all the girls in those days. Anyway, my first final came round in 1965. My two heroes were Ken Fraser, the captain, and he was a lay preacher and ended up a high school principal, and Bluey Shelton, a tough centre back. He wore number 10. He was the toughest player in league football. Not dirty, just tough. And I saw him put two blokes in hospital when I was a teenager by running through them, hip and shoulder. So the sides came out. I'm centre forward for Collingwood. I looked to see who centre back, Bluey Shelton. Well, you reckon I was a little bit wary? I'd say petrified. Anyway, what happened was in the first 5 minutes of the game, we had halfback flanker Duncan Wright. Duncan Wright went bang and knocked out John Somerville down the Richmond end. So it was really on. And Ken Fraser walked round. He was captain of Essendon, beautiful man. And I've got the name so well over the years. He went to every Essendon player, concentrating the ball, don't go mad, don't go stupid. He didn't go anywhere near Bluey Shelton. I felt like saying to Ken Fraser, get over here, tell him not to go stupid. Anyway, I got moved to full forward not long after that and kicked a couple of goals at full forward. But David mentioned, I'm not going to go through every year, don't worry, but 1966 first go, I trained all summer down at Ringle Park. At West Tottery, we had a champion sprinter who was the best sprinter in the pub. He was at parade and he got a scholarship to Xavier, John McHugh. And John was a brilliant sprinter, the best schoolboy sprinter. So I trained with him all summer under old Bill Toomey. Yeah. Now Bill Toomey Senior won the Store gift way back in the 1920s and also ran second in one. Beautiful man, lived in Horden Street, Heidelberg. And so I trained nearly every night sprinting with this best schoolboy sprinter. So I got a lot quicker. And the first game came round, I started centre forward and they put me to full forward at quarter time, Bobby Rose, and I happened to kick 12 goals against Hawthorn it was. Anyway, and double figures hadn't been kicked for a long time. The next week we played Fitzroy, everyone thought, oh, this young bloke will kick 12 again. You know, Collingwood was, I hardly got a kick against Fitzroy it was, down, the only game I ever played down at the Brunswick Street Oval, played on a bloke called Doug Hellings. And it's a small ground. I didn't realise till later in life when I took grandkids down there how small the ground was compared to playing on the bigger grounds. When I say small, not long. Anyway, so, but my career went, improved. I improved a lot in the next couple of years, and I was very lucky to have played in a team. Not that we didn't win the flag, but we had a wonderful, we were in the finals nearly every year. And I had a wonderful midfield, as David mentioned earlier, the Richardson brothers and Barry Price. And Lou Richards, every time he saw me, he'd say, "You wouldn't have got a kick without Barry Price." He said, "I know what you used to do." He's a funny man, Lou. He'd say, "I know that you used to go to his house every Friday night and tuck him in the bed, and you made sure that the pillows were all right." And I said to Lou, "How did you find out?" I love being recognised with Barry Price because he's the nicest person you'd ever met. Comes from Ararat. Rene King thinks he's the greatest footballer ever from Ararat. Well, I was at a Collingwood function and I asked the whole audience, I said, Barry Price came from Ararat and Kiki was sitting in front. I said, who? Hands up those that say Barry Price, because Kiki's a bit up himself. And nearly all the hands went for Barry Price over Rene King. He married his childhood sweetheart from high school, two beautiful people. But everywhere I go in life, people mention Barry Price. And everywhere he goes, they mention me. So, but it's lovely to be associated because he was a magnificent kick. My eyes would light up when he got the ball because he had that swagger about him. He'd come out of the centre, beautiful kick. I was talking to Jason Dunstall one day and I told him how my eyes would light up. He said his eyes used to light up when Darren Jarman got the ball for Hawthorn. Jarman, both feet, magnificent. So I did my kidney, actually. I've got 1.5 kidneys, and so I retired from league football and ended up playing in Tassie and got a teaching job there. Then I was teaching at Marsland College, and I'd been appointed, I didn't want to coach, but Port Melbourne had sacked their coach, Norm Brown, former Fitzroy star. They'd sacked him and appointed a guy called Glenn Elliott who played for St Kilda. But Glenn Elliott changed his mind and said, I'm going to play league football again and play with Melbourne. So they needed a coach. They rang me and said, they begged me to coach them because it's 2 weeks before the season. So I spoke to my wife about it, and so it's such a great, but you've got to play, they said, because it's in the Constitution, you've got to be a playing coach. So I said I'd do it. Anyway, halfway through the year, I was teaching that year at Marsland College, and the librarian came into my room and said, oh, Peter, Lou Richards is on the phone. So I went out to answer the phone. Lou said, I put your name up, Pete. How would you like to commentate for Channel 7? Because Bluey Adams was a commentator, famous Melbourne player. He'd gone overseas. So I said, what do I do, Lou? He said, turn up at Geelong next week. You're calling the game Geelong versus North Melbourne. And the commentary box wasn't up high. It was down at ground level at that stage. And it was a wet day and all the blondes turned dark and the blue and white, two blue and white turned. I struggled a bit. I reckon I was 30 seconds behind, but eventually I called for 20 years and ended up on World of Sport with Lou and Jack and Bob, all famous, Bobby Skilton, all these famous people who used to watch on World of Sport. Before that, back in the 1971, I got a phone call from Norm Spencer, the famous In Melbourne Tonight producer. He produced In Melbourne Tonight for Graham Kennedy. He said, oh, Peter, he said, we're starting a kids program on a Saturday morning. We'd love you to be co-compere. I said, what do you mean co-compere? He said, with a young bloke, a singer and a drummer. I said, what's his name? I said, Daryl Summers. So I started on that show in 71, but 72 came round. I was on it from 8 o'clock till 12. And then 72 came round and all the football was on Saturday afternoon. So one Saturday morning, I got in the wrestling ring with Daryl, mucking around because he's a little bloke and I was tall. Just mucking around because Channel 9 had the wrestling. It was a bit of a promotion for the wrestling. Anyway, so I hardly got a kick. I played a shocker that day. I got the training on the Tuesday night and Neil Mann was the coach. He said, the committee's met, you've got to give up that Saturday morning show. Well, the next week, after I gave it up, I had 11 kicks on David Dench at North Melbourne and kicked 11 goals. But I only mention that because I got the training. See, we told you it was affecting your form. They had every reason then to back them up. That's why they made me give it up. Anyway, I've dined out on this story all these years that I'm the only bloke in the history of television to have been replaced with that by a stuffed ostrich. Aussie ostrich took my place. Now, what a great decision by me. They went on for 29 years together and both became multi-millionaires and I was still working and ended up driving government ministers around the village, which I enjoyed. It was good fun, driving state government ministers. I did that for 12 years. That was my last job. And it was a pretty cushy job, actually, very interesting. I think I could write a book, but I won't. But so I was so lucky to be on that show with Lou, Jack. They were so, Bob Davis would fly up from, when I say fly up in the car, he'd break speed limits, and Bob would walk into the room. My wife used to say to me when we went, why did you all start laughing? Every time Bob walked in the room, but he was funny without trying to be funny with that. He had these big income, unbelievable, and all these funny, Sam Newman takes him off very well. But to work, and Lou would do an interview or he'd do something, and Lou would everyone thought he was a cocky little bloke. He'd always walk off after he'd done. He'd have his coat like that, he'd grab me or grab whoever he could grab. Was that good? Was that okay? He always liked a little bit of reassurance that what he'd done. But he loved that. I love telling this story that Lou reckons he asked Jack Dyer, did he go anywhere on the holidays? And he reckons Jack Dyer's reply was, I had a wonderful holiday. I went to France. Oh, Lou said, Any good places? Yes, he said. I went to a place called Nice. And he said, I went to the French River Arena, and then I ended up on the Champs Elsies. So Lou used to love telling that story. And one funny thing I did see on World of Sport, and this was really funny, that Jack Dye was interviewing the famous South Melbourne centre forward Laurie Nash. And Laurie was the greatest player of the 1930s, and he knew it. Anyway, he was well known for, in fact, he played the state game and kicked 18 goals from centre forward. And he said to one bloke he played on, listen, he was 60 metres out. He said, what do you want, right foot or left foot? And the bloke said, left foot. He went back and drop kicked the goal on his left foot. And anyway, but I'll never forget, Jack Dye was interviewing Laurie, and he said to Laurie, who's the greatest player? Laurie, you were the greatest player I've ever seen. Who's the greatest player you've ever seen? He said, well, Jack, I've got to be honest with you. I see him every morning when I have a shave. And the funny part was he believed it. You know, it wasn't a joke, he really believed it. But he played Test cricket. He played one game or two games for Laurie Nash for Australia and took 5 wickets. Didn't play again for Australia for, forget, there was some reason behind the scenes they didn't want him or something. But it was a wonderful game round Australia, calling the football, and I called with, but I wasn't a special comment, so I called the footy for 20 years, to call with Bruce McAvaney, and I want to say one thing about Ozzy Ostrich. The nicest man you'd ever meet in your life was Ernie Carroll, the man behind Ozzy Ostrich, and he died not long ago in his 90s, and he had a partner later in life that it was lovely because she used to be on TV in the early days, did a lot of ads that called Missy Marsh, her name was. I don't know if you remember that lady, but it was lovely that he palled up with her later in life. He was the nicest man. And the guys I commentated with, I was so fortunate to go around Australia, all the states, and Bruce McAvaney, who's just an absolute champion bloke, and Peter Landy, Sandy Roberts, a real pro. Sandy would walk in to commentate. He'd just have a footy record and a pencil. He'd walk in, everything he did was ad lib. He didn't have a note, or same with Drew Moffat. Dentist committee, who's not very well. He's really, really suffering severe dementia and very thin and doesn't want to say so. It's very, very sad. He was such a great caller, and that. So to call with all those guys was just fantastic. And then you had the footballers too, Bernie Quinlan, Ross Glendinning, all these, Gerard Healy, they're great guys, all of them. It's such a big thrill, and to call all the young players coming through. So that was mainly I was very fortunate to go from playing football. Oh, I must mention, because of the lovely singing before, I used to have, I'm not too long enough, a couple of 2 minutes. We used to have these wonderful nights at Collingwood after home games, and all the players and girlfriends and wives and the committee, we'd all get together in a room and we'd have a sing-along. And the players had to get up and sing a song. I sang the same song for 11 years. They wouldn't let me. If I wanted to sing, no, you're singing this one. I sang the famous Irish song Galway Bay, which I adored because my dad was loved Irish music. I was brought up on it, but it was funny. Neil Mann could sing Open Road, Open Sky. Charles Thomas, famous singer, used to sing. Then we had Des Tuddenham would sing 35 verses of Click Go the Shears. You wouldn't believe it, just went on and on and on. Jerk and Jenkins, they would all sing the same song every time. Jerk and Jenkins would sing, I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts. And we had a guy who used to pour the drinks. I'll say this without being unkind, it's about 95 cents in the dollar, you know what I mean? But he poured the drink and he would be invited to the night and he'd pretend he was Shirley Temple. And he'd get up there and put on the girl's voice and sing on the good ship Lollipop. And we'd all clap madly and he really thought he was the star of the show. But the sad part was, when I say sad, we had this beautiful lady sitting over there with Bob Rose, his wife, who was a professional singer that we didn't know. She was called Judy Garland of Melbourne. She used to sing at restaurants and that we just didn't know about it. And I saw a film of her later in life singing, and she's the nicest person you'd ever meet in your life. Glenn Gabelich, Ray's wife, said she's the only woman she's seen in jeans that looks as if she's a model in jeans, and she was a lovely lady. But she was a beautiful singer, and she had to put up with all, I suppose, getting up there and singing songs when she's a professional singer. Anyway, I did make 2 recordings on singing. What happened was, and I'll finish on this because I don't want you to ever hear the first one was the singer at Heidelberg Town Hall, Dance, wrote this song, I recorded that. They're always sold a few because Collingwood supporters, they'll buy them if that's any good enough. Then the next one I was at Channel 9, I was on that became Hey Hey Saturday, it was Cartoon Corner when I was on it. Anyway, I said, why don't you record this song? And I said, well, I can sing in tune, that's about all. But it's written by Johnny Young. Well, I hated it, but I did it because they asked me to. Anyway, you wouldn't believe that when I end up, some places they have the bloody song and I'm the cunt and I go hiding. But it's sold a fair few, believe it or not. Anyway, but that's the loyalty of Collingwood supporters. It was a wonderful club. I ended up playing 1 year at Carlton. I did a year after. I wanted to play for Collingwood again. They offered me $300 a week. If you get dropped the second, we'll pay you $100. Carlton offered me $12,000 guaranteed. I had a 2-year contract. I only played the 1 year. I found it so hard playing against Collingwood. I went to Carlton and said, look, well, Ian Stewart had come as coach. He got sacked a few weeks later and Alex Jesselenko took over as captain coach. If I had known that, I probably would have stayed, but because he's a great bloke, Jesse. And so then I went to VT, then I got that commentary job. So I was very fortunate after football to get that life in the media, and I met so many people travelling around Australia, even to go to Gold Coast and when they played on the Brisbane Bears, at Carrara. Dick Reynolds was always at the games up there, and to meet a bloke like Dick Reynolds, a famous Essendon champion, to meet people in football through that commentary was absolutely a big thrill in my life. But I've never forgotten growing up that street up there. Anyone from West Heidelberg I run into, only David knows what I'm going to say. I've been with guys from West Heidelberg and people say, where'd you grow up? And I say, oh, I grew up in Heidelberg. They think it's a bit classier to say that. And I say, listen, you didn't grow up in Heidelberg, you grew up in West Heidelberg. But now we can say it's Heidelberg Heights. But, you know, as I say, my house still there, and it was used for a number of years for the Dennis was saying earlier, and reminded me it was used for quadriplegics, because I called in one day and I could see the ramps and there were showers where you could tell, and they were building on it when I called in the workman. I said, do you mind if I come in and have a look around? I grew up in this house. All these young blokes said, we all know that, we've heard it from the neighbours. And so anyway, I was auctioned off a couple of years ago, and I went to the auction and a couple bought it. Then they came straight over to me and I said, look, we voted for Collingwood, that's not why they bought the house. But I said, oh, you're not going to put it down, are you? I said, we bought it for our son, he's a builder, and he's not pulling it down. So it's still sitting there as it used to be, except it's a little bit different because it was set up for quadriplegics and paraplegics. So anyway, thanks for having me, and
What about any
I hope
questions?
I haven't
Luke?
been too long.
No, terrific. Any questions? Anyone like to ask Pete? Yeah.
Hi, Pete. So what do you think of the Dacos boys?
Those fantastic skills. Nick should have won the best and fairest. I went to that. We couldn't believe it. Peter and his wife were very happy because he'd just been beaten in the Brownlow. And we all thought he was a walk-up stuff, but they've got a weird voting system in Collingwood. They've got to get rid of it because Nick was our best player for the year. He's an exceptional player, and they're nice kids. They're not up themselves, they're just beautiful. And Peter and his wife have brought them up very modest and not up themselves. But the way football's going, for a guy to be on 2 million, there's no certainty Nick will stay at Collingwood forever because someone's going to come at him with the big money. But he'd be on $1 million himself. But now when they're paying $2 million for the St Kilda guy and 1.7 for the ruckman from Carlton, it's getting out of hand. We'll find we're like the American system soon, where players change hands regularly. I really think that'll happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's going to happen is that the clubs will have the ability to force players to move. That'll be the next step.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, but we're not
In
far
fact,
off.
they're hinting at it already.
Yeah.
I see in the paper today they were saying that Collingwood are sort of half wanting clubs to approach Jordan de Goey. And when there's those hints, it's usually true. I'm not kidding.
Anyone else? Question? Okay, well, Pete, we've got something for you.
Oh,
Over here, Kevin Ryan's purchased.
very nice. Thank you.
You both might enjoy that. That's a little token of our appreciation for you coming along and talking to us. Pete can stay for a while, but he's got a Collingwood function.
David Galbally.
Some of you might have known David Galbally because David Galbally grew up in the wider Heidelberg area. He was, I suppose, East Ivanhoe, and of course, son of the famous Frank.
Yeah.
So they've got a function for David.
Yeah, so it's sort of a tribute to David. He's already had the funeral private, and they're having it at Collingwood offices down there in Swan Street.
Yeah, he was only 23 when he first went on the board at Collingwood. I think probably the youngest ever. Anyway, mate, thanks.
Thank you, David. And David was one of the real stars of Bray College. He was good at everything and had it up here too, and that's why he did so well in law. And everyone's proud of you, David.
Thanks, mate. I'll get this off you.
Oh, yeah.
This one. All right. I don't think we've got anything else, Graham, that we need to raise.
A couple of flyers for that.
Bev's got some flyers for the.
Flyers we'll put up the back, yeah.
Yeah, some flyers for the Heidelberg Coral.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, the performance they did of the Bark Mason B minor was just incredible. So I'm sure this one will be just as good. At the grammar school, Bev, I assume? Yes. So if you can make it, get some tickets. So our next meeting in November, a little bit of a football flavour as well, because we've got Susan Alberti coming, and of course she was heavily involved with the Bulldogs. I think was deputy president of the Bulldogs, and it was very much involved in the establishment of the AFL women's competition. So it'll be interesting to hear her perspective on football and other things. So, thanks for coming, and we'll be having some lunch fairly soon, I would think. And thank you, Bruce, for again making it all happen. We're not streaming now, but this has been recorded, so it'll be available to access through the recording.
Yes, I'll send an email when the videos are available, but there's nothing on the web at the moment like it used to be. So nothing went live, but it's all sitting inside the camera at the moment. So I'll load it up to our YouTube channel for those who want to see it, and I'll send an email with a link to that when I get round to it this afternoon, if I can.
Yeah, I'll access it through the link. Okay, that's good. We'll see you at the next meeting.
Okay.